All right, I think we have the okay to get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Breaking Down the MLC DURP Initiative. I'm Alyssa Byrne, Senior Manager of Writer and Publisher Relations at TuneCore, and I'm joined today by Dave Bogan, live from Mondo NYC, actually, Head of Third-Party Partnerships at the MLC. Day leads the MLC's strategy for engaging third-party entities like us here at TuneCore to support initiatives in rights administration, data management, operations, and membership services. Day, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, so we're going to get into the MLC DURP Initiative, why it's important for songwriters, all that good stuff in a bit. But before we get started, I just wanted to lay a few things out for everyone watching. TuneCore is both a distributor, meaning we get your music from your studio to all the streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music, but we're also a publishing administrator, which means we register your songs or compositions, as you'll hear us refer to them throughout this call, and collect the royalties that your compositions generate with the help of Day and the MLC, of course. There are several different royalty types, and it's important to understand that there is a difference between your sound recording, which falls under distribution, and your composition falling under publishing administration, which is what we're going to be focusing on here today. And I think we have a slide that just shows you the difference real quick. So we keep in mind that we're talking about publishing and the composition and not distribution and the sound recording. We're sticking to publishing today. So yeah. All right, so Day, can you tell us a little bit about how and when the MLC came to be as part of the Music Modernization Act for songwriters?
Absolutely. So in 2018, the Music Modernization Act passed. And the Music Modernization Act was something that the entire music industry contributed to in various capacities. And it updated the way that we license songs in the United States. So part of the MMA was to establish the MLC, Mechanical Licensing Collector. And our job is to administer the new blanket digital mechanical royalty that was established, or blanket digital mechanical license that was established by the MMA, and to pay out the royalties pursuant to that license. We were created in 2020, and the license went into effect in January 1st, 2021. So MLC is sort of the new music rights organization on the block. We've been around now in operations for 3 years, and we are paying our partners, our publishers, and we've done, I think, over almost $1.9 billion processed since we started. So that's a lot in 3 years, and we look forward to the future.
Yeah, more to come. Cool. So now that we have the foundation of the work that y'all are doing, how did the DURP Initiative specifically come to be? Can you walk us through what it is, how it works, maybe what it stands for? I'm sure a lot of people are thinking DURP,
Yeah,
thinking what?
yeah, it's a funny name, which I love. So I created the name. So DURP stands for Distributor Unmatched Recordings Portal, and basically it's a platform that enables music distributors to have visibility into the recordings that they've released on behalf of artists. And these recordings are currently not these recordings are earning royalties, but are not being paid out. So the reason why I built this portal was because music distributors are the closest in the supply chain to the creator. Creators and distributors are sort of like direct partners, and distributors know more about artists than we will ever know as an organization. So um, this diagram that's on screen here sort of illustrates the problem that we're solving with the DURP portal. So starting to the far left with the music creator. So let's say I'm an artist in Los Angeles, and I'm using TuneCore for music distribution. So that artist will upload his release to the TuneCore platform. TuneCore then distributes that release out to all the DSPs, like, for example, as Spotify, um, you know, Pandora, Apple Music. So all the DSPs receive a copy, And then the DSPs are operating under the blanket mechanical license, which the MLC administers. So the DSPs have to report to the MLC every month all of their streams, all of the downloads, any of that usage from those recordings. So when the DSPs report that usage to the MLC, our job is then to match that usage to a song composition that has been registered at the MLC. And the song is embodied in the recording. So the recordings are the actual files that are out in the music ecosystem generating the usage, and the composition is the copyright ownership that dictates how the mechanical royalties are distributed and paid out. So we attempt to match this usage from DSPs to the songs registered. And if we can't find a match, then those unmatched recordings, so almost like orphan recordings, fall into a database of unmatched recordings. Um, and these recordings continue to earn royalties. As you're earning more streams, more downloads, you're earning more royalties. But those royalties may not be paid out because they have not been matched to composition. A lot of times, independent artists are unfamiliar with the process, and are not involved, really not sort of leaped in to the kind of global music licensing ecosystem. And that's where partners such as their distributor or pub admin of their distributor comes into play. So we built this portal specifically for music distributors to have visibility into those unmatched recordings that they release, so that they can see, okay, these recordings are generating royalties at the MLC. They have not been matched to a song. They're not being paid out, and we can take action. And our goal, and TuneCore has been a great partner on this, but the goal, the entire purpose of this platform was to um, uh, get distributors to take some action on this information. And you guys have been doing that in many ways. So that's the DURP program.
Great. Yeah, I know. One of our kind of pillars, if you will, is making our artists' lives easier. And I think that this is such a powerful tool for us to get, money into the hands of the right people at the right time and in the right way. And it's a really, really powerful way for us to do that easily and efficiently. So very exciting to have. So you mentioned, this unclaimed sort of portal within the portal. What happens if people don't claim these funds? Where do they go?
Um, so there's there's the legal, where do they go? And then
Yeah,
there's the reality, where do they go?
sure.
So let me start with the policy, the Music Modernization Act. So the Music Modernization Act states that the MLC must hold on to unclaimed royalties for a minimum of 3 years. We went into operation January 1st, 2021. That means January 1st, 2024 would be the first 3 year kind of benchmark. Um, and the goal with that 3 year period, I think when publishers and different parties in the music industry negotiated that term, was that they felt 3 years was minimum should be minimally sufficient to try to find the rights holders, the songwriters, to pay out. And basically, if we can't be found in that period of time, then there's less likelihood of finding them. That being said, the reality is that NLC, we intend to continue to hold as long as we can. That's reasonable. We're doing partnerships like this with TuneCore that is going to allow us to find more independent artists. For example, you guys work with tens of thousands of independent artists, and we need that reach, and therefore we need more time to hold those royalties to make sure that we can get them to the right artists. It would be, something that we don't want to do. We wouldn't want a band in, you know, Las Vegas who simply don't know anything about the music business, who's been generating traction on social media that translate into traction on DSPs, to be earning royalties and knowing nothing about it, and then all of a sudden those royalties disappear because they didn't know about it. So we want to give as much time as possible to find these creators and to make sure they get paid, and to also create partnerships and opportunities like this to streamline that process.
Yeah, for sure. And we keep talking about royalties, right? That's kind of what all of this is about. But there are so many different kinds of royalties. So I think it might be helpful for us to just break down exactly what kinds of royalties that the MLC is tracking. So we have a slide that kind of just illustrates what are U.S. digital mechanical royalties, and maybe you can tell us about that a
Sure.
little bit.
Sure. So the MLC, we pay out digital mechanical royalties. So the first keyword in this title in this phrase is digital, right? So we don't pay out physical, for example. So we don't pay out royalties for CDs or vinyl or cassettes. There is a mechanical royalties for CDs and vinyls and cassettes, but we're not involved in that. We are audio only, so we don't deal with video, like a YouTube video or Vimeo, or any kind of Facebook or Instagram video. Um, but we deal with audio mechanical royalties. And this is paid for the composition meaning your lyrics, your melody, your musical notation, as opposed to the sound recording, which is the output from the studio. That's a different copyright, that's a different royalty type. That royalty is paid through Sound Exchange, which is like a cousin of us. Um, we are designated as the exclusive administrator in the United States. So, in terms of administering this blanket digital mechanical license, we are the exclusive organization that handles that. And the sources of those royalties come from digital service providers such as Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud, and Deezer, and the list goes on, as well as digital download stores. Um, and they include not only original compositions but also cover songs. Which is also important that if you're an artist and someone else is covering your song, that cover version is still a source of royalties for the original songwriter.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a common misconception that we see a lot, where people think, oh, well, if I cover a song, then I'm entitled to those royalties. But really, it's you wrote the song, right? As someone who, wrote the song and then someone else covers it, you're not entitled to the royalties of the songwriter. So yeah, I think, all important points, and it just kind of speaks volumes to how complicated this industry is, and, aggregating all of your different pay sources and stuff. So I think, that speaks to how a pub admin like TuneCore can help, but we'll get into that in a bit. So yeah, I guess coming back to distribution and publishing and how everything works together, one of the things that historically has been hard to come by in the music industry is the importance of transparency and visibility. And we're lucky enough at TuneCore to be both a distributor and a publishing administrator, which gives us a distinct strength in our ability to utilize the DURP portal and efficiently match unclaimed works to their owners and get them paid. Can you talk about how that system of matching works a little bit more, and what songwriters can do to maximize their ability to claim what's theirs?
Um, I'm sorry, can you rephrase that
Yeah,
or
so
repeat that?
yeah, no worries. I know you got some noise going on. It's a busy conference there at Mondo. So the system of matching you talked about a little bit earlier, just kind of giving us an overview of how the DURP portal functions. But what does a songwriter have to do, right? Like if it's utilizing their publishing administrator, what is the
Right.
action that they have to take to make sure that they're able
Sure.
to claim what's
So,
theirs?
yeah, absolutely. So our job at the MLC is to match incoming usage reports about recordings to the songs ownership files, basically, right? The registration, song registrations. So that's number one thing that needs to be done. The song has to be registered, right?
Yeah.
So a song has to be registered at the MLC. If it's not registered, then there's no matching that's going to occur. But in addition to it being registered, we also need to know 100% of the shares. So if you're collaborating with a songwriter and there's two songwriters and it's 50-50, then we need to know both of the songwriters. So the number one thing that creators need to do is provide all of the information about their songs to their publishing partners or publishing administrators. So for example, if they're working with TuneCore Publishing, then making sure that all the information is provided so that the registrations can happen in a timely fashion and that they can be complete registrations. A lot of times we have situations where 50% of the registration, the song is registered, or even 30%. I've seen 16%, which is ridiculous. Sometimes it's five people, five songwriters on a song, and only one songwriter is actually getting paid because the other four have not registered their shares. So it's important that all the songwriters on the work is represented.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we definitely see that a lot, and I think a common thing that we see also is somebody thinking they registered their portion of the song, and that means that the entire song is registered when we know that not to be the case. So when it comes to registering the song and making sure you have all your metadata, that's super important not to skip over on the details, right? So who are your co-writers? What is the ISRC code? Like all of that. So, adding to that, songwriters do have a lot on their plate when it comes to making sure that their songs are registered properly, both with you at the MLC, with a PRO like, ASCAP or BMI in the States, overseas. There are all of these different places to collect their royalties. Maybe in your words, you can tell us why working with a PubAd like TuneCore is advantageous to songwriters in this particular context.
Right. So, the MLC is an organization that songwriters can affiliate with either directly or through a publisher or publishing administrator. Now, we do not handle global mechanical royalties, and I think it's important to understand that the MLC only collects and pays out mechanical royalties for usage in the United States. We only pay, for streams and downloads that occur in the United States. So if you don't have a publisher administrator or a publisher, then you're not going to be able to collect your mechanical royalties outside the United States. And if you look at your top streaming, your top 10 markets on Spotify for artists, you can see the metadata, or Apple, you can see that you might have countries that you may be earning royalties in based on the fact that you have usage in those countries. And that's one of the reasons it's helpful to have a publisher administrator to be able to collect that global royalties.
Yeah, for sure. So really to sum up, working with a pub admin like TuneCore helps songwriters collect more of their money more efficiently, right? And you can see here in this graphic, it's a crazy world of all of these different organizations with a bunch of, oh gosh, I forget the word, but the like abbreviated, acronyms.
CMOs, yes,
So
collective
there are
management organizations, yeah.
yeah, hundreds of these all over the world. So it would be like a full-time job to sit down and make sure that your works are registered everywhere. And like you said, not be able to claim without a publisher mechanical royalties outside the US and all of that. So having a publishing administrator really kind of wraps it up into a neat little package, without the headache of having to do all of this. So I'm really, glad as someone who grew up a music fan. I'm not a musician myself, but this is really a dream to be working in the industry. I love music so much, and as a fan and someone whose music is super important to you, I'm really glad that an organization like the MLC exists. And you guys are a nonprofit. You're really kind of doing things the right way, in my opinion, and you're literally created to help songwriters collect more royalties, and I'm happy about that, and I'm happy that it has people like you at the helm, right? I think to have this idea and have this system that has really made things so much better and easier to get more money into the hands of the respective
Yeah, I
owners.
mean, it's definitely a great thing. I've been in the music business on the sort of the rights and royalty side for about 15 years. Actually, that's going, yeah, it's quite some time. And the MMA really changed things for creators. It created not only the MLC, but also the AMP Act for producers and engineers, and the Classics Act for artists with pre-1972 recording. So it made a lot of changes. And now we're seeing, we've paid out over $1 billion in royalties in just in a few months, and we still have more to go. But I want to speak to the DURP. The DURP was sort of my baby, my concept, which I'm super excited about because the first we launched it, and within weeks, the first artist we paid out was $20,000 in back royalties, and this is an artist that didn't even know he had it royalties. Independent hip hop artist out of Australia, and out of Perth, Australia. And in November of last year, we sent him almost $20,000. because of the DURP data, because we were able to see these recordings that were earning royalties but were not being paid out. So there has been many more scenarios since then. We just celebrated the 1 year anniversary of the launch of the DURP. And looking forward to this year, next year, in terms of making sure more artists get paid. So this is a really good partnership, and that you guys are focusing on this data and making sure that your artists get paid.
Yeah. Well, thanks. We couldn't do it without you. I think we have time for a few questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So from Niels, we have, my question is from a label standpoint. Implication is that the MMA made it so you didn't need a separate DPD license. When a song is HFA, it's easy, but sometimes indie publishers are harder to track down. So more of a comment than a question, I suppose, but I don't know, Dave, if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Well, the first thing is the MLC services publishers and DSPs. We don't service labels. So from a label standpoint, nothing has changed in terms of your license obligations. And under MMA, record labels are still required to seek and obtain mechanical licenses for distribution in regards to physical. Now, if you're a label that's distributing digital only, then the blanket license effectively covers that. However, a lot of publishers do appreciate you seeking out a compulsory mechanical license through existing processes. Like you mentioned, HFA has song file. I personally do some side consulting work with remixers, and we've used song file as a way to secure licenses, and it's more of a secondary support, because the MMA blanket license is sufficient alone, but communicating with the publisher, creating that relationship between the artist that is covering a song and a publisher is very helpful in terms of just business relationship. But a label still needs to deal with publishers direct when it comes to things like ringtones, for example. The blanket license MMA, the MLC license does not cover ringtones. It does not cover physical. It does not cover downloads on your own store, like your artist's website. It doesn't cover streams on your own artist website. So if you're doing those type of things, like a band Zoogle powered website, or those private websites that are direct to fan, that stuff is separate and outside of the MMA blanket license.
Cool. All right, and we have listened to Olivia. So once we're signed up for TuneCore Publishing, we don't need any MLC. I can take that one, I think. So we, in partnership with the MLC, register all your songs on your behalf with them. So you don't need to sign up separately. The way that you need an account with BMI or ASCAP or your PRO, that's kind of a different thing. We're able to send all of your metadata through, make sure your registrations are set up as your publisher administrator. That is what we do. So you do not need to necessarily directly register your songs at the MLC. In fact, I think that can create some headaches if you double up. So
yeah, that's important to call out. As a songwriter, if you choose to work with a publishing administrator like TuneCore Publishing, then TuneCore is the member at the MLC that we will be paying on behalf of those songs. And they're also doing the work outside the MLC as well. Like I said, if we don't collect in other territories, they'll be doing that on your behalf in other territories. So while it is possible, and we do have lots of songwriters who are direct members of MLC, those songwriters still have to come up with a solution for their mechanical collections outside the United States, which still means they need to go and find a publishing administrator like a TuneCore Publishing.
Right. Plus all of the things you mentioned, right? Like anything from video, anything, performance royalties, other kinds of royalties that encompass this whole pool of publishing royalties, right? So this is only one source, whereas a publishing administrator kind of covers all of your bases. So Sunny T, can this replace me using BMI and using and submitting everything in one place? Kind of, sort of. So the MLC, again, only one source for the revenue that you could be earning. It does not replace your PRO. The MLC is concerned with mechanical royalties, whereas your BMI or your PRO, excuse me, is concerned with performance royalties. So it's a different royalty type. And I think we do have some plans to maybe do a couple more of these where we get into different royalties and all of the kind of 101 of publishing. But today we're just focused on mechanicals, which is separate and apart from BMI. So you still do need a PRO, and to work with us, we do require that. So, you need a PRO, you need a pub admin, you should sign up with Sound Exchange. Those are your kind of your checklist of making sure that you're covered. And from King Boy, are you saying the same amount we got from a normal stream is the same amount I was getting as a songwriter? So I think what this is getting at is the royalty rates. No, it is not a 1-to-1 ratio. So, a royalty, a single royalty that you would get from distribution, so from your sound recording, does not necessarily mean that you are going to get that same amount in a publishing royalty. The rates are all negotiated differently. Some are set by the government, some are not. So it's not a 1-to-1 is I think the best way to think about it.
Let me just jump in here to clarify as well. So again, this whole conversation has been about your compositions, your publishing, and your sound recordings are different, right? So sound recordings receive a different royalty rate, which is negotiated between sound recording copyright owners and DSPs directly, whereas the royalties for the musical work of composition is set by the Copyright Royalty Board. So it's not a negotiation. It's set. It's called a statutory rate. These rates are published online. It's public information, but it's not a set cent rate. It's a formula, and the formula takes into account the DSP's revenue for the month. It takes into account the total number of streams. It takes into account your share of total streams. So it's a formula, which means your effective rate, royalty rate for your publishing is going to change every month based on all these different variables in the formula.
Yeah, it's a complicated world.
But you do need to know that for a lot of artists, it is a missing royalty because they have never collected it before. So when you do join and start having your works register, it unlocks all of these royalties going back to 2007. So that's why the guy we paid out for the first artist was paid out from the DURP was $20,000 last year, because it goes back to when he first started earning streams or downloads in the United States.
For sure. All right, cool. So from Martin, I was with another DSP, which I think we mean distributor. DSP refers to like Spotify, Apple Music, that kind of thing. Before I joined TuneCore. Does TuneCore also take care of the songwriting rights of these other previous DSPs? So TuneCore Publishing, right, collects your publishing royalties regardless of where you are distributing them. So you can use other distributors, they prefer you don't. But if they're distributed through TuneCore, if they're distributed elsewhere, if you had a label deal before, all of those songs are still eligible to be registered for publishing and to collect those royalties. So even if you came over from a DistroKid or a CD Baby or a label, wherever, and you're distributing with us for the first time, or even if you're just using us for publishing administration, that's also an option. You're able to register any song you want as long as you wrote it and you have the rights to it. All right, we have Justin. Is it in MLC's roadmap to become a global collector? Okay.
No. So as much as we would individually like to, it's the law of the land, right? So it's actually copyright law that sets what the MLC is supposed to do, and then the rules and the sort of operational fine print is regulated by the United States Copyright Office. But the copyright, the MMA, the Music Modernization Act, established the MLC as only a U.S. Service. So meaning we only collect for usage in the United States, although we pay members globally. So you can be anywhere in the world, and we still can pay, but we're only paying for the U.S. usage.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. And I think also worth mentioning, we touched on this a little bit before, there are several of these different kind of organizations, collection agencies around the world. So certain territories, France, Germany, wherever, they have companies or organizations in place that do similar things, which is again why I think having a publishing administrator helps you aggregate all of that. But the MLC is sort of born out of legislation, so it is US specific there. From David, this is very helpful. Once we sign up with TuneCore for publishing administration, how long would it take for the MLC to determine whether we are matched to unclaimed mechanical royalties? So there's a couple different answers here. It depends on, it doesn't just stop there when you sign up for the service. You have to go in and submit your shares. That's something that gets overlooked a lot. So when you sign up for PubAd, you are not done. You need to go into your managed company portal and submit your shares. If you own 100%, you put in 100%. If you own 50%, you put in 50%. Once that happens, it usually takes our team about a week or two to process the registration, get everything sent out appropriately. And then we usually start to see royalties flow in around the 6-month mark, maybe 9 months, and then a little bit longer internationally. Might seem like a long time, but that is pretty standard for publishing. Day, any thoughts on how long it takes you guys to pay out?
Yeah, we pay out monthly. So the MLC pays out monthly, and it's a 75-day processing window. So royalties that are earned in January, for example, at the end of that period is paid out 75 days later. So that's what, like mid-April. And royalties earned in February is paid out mid-May. So there's a 75-day sort of our processing period, but we pay out on a monthly basis. In regards to kind of when you sign up versus when you said here whether you discover if you have matched or unclaimed, it depends on, again, having the work registered. So this already mentioned, once the work is registered, then we're able to look at if there's any known unmatched recordings that our system will automatically catch. So we have a 40+ person matching team who's literally manually looking at and searching for matches all the time. We also have algorithms. We have our own kind of automated processes. So when TuneCore registers a new song, our system every month is going to look over all hundreds of millions of unmatched recordings to see if there's a match. And if we find that match, it's going to automatically match it. It takes some time, but if it doesn't automatically match it, our members have access to tools at the MLC to search our unmatched database. And TuneCore as a distributor also has the DURP, which is basically more targeted because we're telling you already, we know that these are unmatched because we have it and it has TuneCore listed as a distributor, so we know for sure that it's a TuneCore artist and that we have the money for it. So you may have already seen some emails from TuneCore about that, but I'm not sure if you can speak to that, but that's super important because that's a huge feature for us as an organization. No other organization in the world has that. So it's very important to understand that getting an email like that from TuneCore is a not a once in a lifetime, but first of its kind scenario, because no other organization in the world has a system that tells the distributor this track that you release is earning royalties and all we need is the song. Right. So that outreach is really incredible.
And imagine if we had this in like the 70s.
Right.
Good thing. Cool. And then from Niels, if a writer signed up today, how far back would their potential collections go? And I think we should keep this maybe specific to the MLC.
Yeah. So for MLC, we go back as far as 2007.
That's pretty good. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different answers to that question. You look at different organizations, different territories, etc. So to be able to go back so far in an unmatched, royalty pool is pretty amazing.
Let me add something to that because there's one thing to know why that's super amazing. The law of the United States, the actual copyright law, it states that users, such as DSPs, are technically not legally required to pay a copyright owner any royalties if the song was not registered at the United States Copyright Office and made available in a public database. So the original law, which that's why the Music Modernization Act updates it,
Yeah.
is basically saying you could have released something in 2007, but if you have not registered your song with the Copyright Office, not with MLC or ASCAP or BMI, but with the United States Copyright Office itself, technically you're not eligible for mechanical royalties. Doesn't matter how big the song is. That's what the real law of the United States is. The MMA came in and stated, well, we can collect everything that DSPs have ever held on to must be transferred to MLC, and that's what they did in our first year. They transferred $426 million to us, which goes back to 2007. So that's everything they've ever held from the beginning of their operations was transferred to us. So we have all this information, but now we need to go and find, okay, this track was released in 2008 by this artist. We don't know who the artist is, and now we need to pay this person. So that's where the DURP comes into play.
Yeah. All right, from Martin. This is one of the most useful webinars I've attended in a long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for the amazing feedback. I hope this was super helpful. Day, thank you again for being here. I know you're busy with Mondo, and I know you have a panel to go speak on, so maybe we'll let you get going. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Part of music publishing, and thank you so much for everyone for joining. I think we'll have a recording of this session available for you the next day or so, and always check up on our Instagram for the latest updates and upcoming TuneCore live sessions.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.